Crypto products and NFTs are unregulated and can be highly risky. There may be no regulatory recourse for any loss from such transactions.
Hello and welcome to ET Markets Crypto TV presented by CoinSwitch Kuber. I'm Maloni Tykhe. Our aim here is to demystify crypto and its universe. We want to deep dive into topics and subjects so you understand the nuances and are better armed to navigate this new and bold space. Our focus today, DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organizations. What are they? What do they actually do? And why are they getting so much attention? To help us understand all this, we have with us Prashant Malik, who is the general partner and founder at Tykhe Block Ventures, an investment firm founded in 2021 that focuses on Web3 organizations. Prashant is an angel investor, he's an entrepreneur, and he advises companies. He co-founded LimeRoad, an e-commerce company, and before that, he worked with Facebook, which is now Meta, Microsoft, and Siemens. While at Meta, he built the database management system to help manage the growing number of users on the platform, which is now used by Instagram, Netflix, and Apple too. Prashant, good to have you with us to talk about DAOs. Why don't you begin by telling us what exactly are DAOs? How do they actually work?
Well, so there is a statement that everything is getting eaten by software, right? And so is the organization, you can say. So DAO, you can say, is a transformation of the organization into code. So if I could represent an organization, it has a number of people, it's trying to kind of have a mission, and it could be any organization, right? It could be a non-profit organization or a group of people coming together to achieve certain kind of mission. They pull in some money or they want to buy something, anything. I mean, so I'm using organization as a very generic term. It's basically a bunch of people coming together. They could be like-minded, they could be different-minded, but they have a mission to accomplish in one way or form or the other. Now, there are offline ways of doing that. You form an LLC, you do this, that, and then you form a bank account, then you put some money, you have shareholding. So it's a complex process, especially if the process is across the world and people are from different nationalities with different, I don't know, tax rules, with different kind of governance and so on. So all that gets pretty complicated. DAO simplifies all that. It basically says it's all in the software. You come, you click a button, and your DAO is created with a bunch of smart contracts that are there, which are encoded, which have encoded rules for that particular company. And then the governance of the company, there is no CEO, there is no CFO, there is no mid-management, nothing. Everything is governed by a set of shares or tokens or the amount of governance that you own in that particular DAO. And then a voting happens. So it's a very democratized way of running an organization or a group. And all decisions are made based on this particular kind of voting that happens, including the funds that get attached to the DAO through an account or whatever. So a DAO basically consists of, you can say, a token set. It consists of voting app. It consists of account or the funds, treasury, and then the bunch of people that are part of it.
So can you go a little bit into the significance of these tokens?
Yeah, so tokens are, see, there are multiple ways you can become part of a DAO, right? So how do you become part of a DAO? So it could be like somebody, there is a gatekeeper, let's say, and they could say, okay, whether this particular person is allowed or not allowed. So those are called like permission. With permission, you can get in. So those are the kind of DAOs which are share based. So once you get a permission, you get in, and then you get a set of tokens or shares into the DAO. But the total permissionless DAOs are totally open. So they generate a bunch of governance tokens, and you could actually just buy those tokens. Once you buy those tokens, you are now part of the DAO. And the more you buy, the more share you have in the DAO, and so on. So basically, you kind of can just be part of the DAO by simply buying a token. There are other ways to gain that token through work, through kind of things that you do for the DAO, through meeting your responsibilities, proof of work, what kind of stuff you can do to do mining of the governance tokens and stuff. There are a number of ways in which you increase your governance tokens, but it's totally permissionless. And that's how the tokens kind of come in and enable the governance of the DAO as such.
So in traditional organizations, whoever has the most amount of money also will have the biggest say, perhaps, right?
Right.
It's the same in a DAO, isn't it then? How is it so different?
Not really, right? So let's say in a big organization, you own 10%, the CEO owns 10% of the company or 20% or whatever. Most of the decisions are made by the CEO. What about the rest of the 80%? So where does that go? And there is no board of directors in a DAO or anything like that, right? So everybody, even if you own 0.1% of the DAO, you have a vote. You have a vote and you have a say in anything that the DAO is trying to do. So let's say you want to allocate funds to a particular cause X. That would be floated in DAO talk and everybody would have a discussion around it, and then there would be a voting. And of course, there are various algorithms for the voting, and that's where all the hacking and all that good stuff comes in. But once this voting happens and the quorum is established, then it is based on the entire community that is part of the DAO and owns these governance tokens that has the say which is reflected in this decision. It is not that the CEO is saying do this or do that.
But Prashant, those who have the most number of tokens,
yes,
will probably have the most number of votes?
Will have greater say, or their weightage is definitely greater. But if you kind of look at this algorithm, let's say I take a simple algorithm, right, which is 51% of the voting power, the majority. If 51% votes for yes, then that means you have won a particular cause and you go ahead and do it. So you need to own 51%. So let's say there are 10 people or 20 people who own 51%. In a simplistic way, yes, they would then govern what happens in the DAO, definitely. But the rest of the people also have voted and also have a say or can bring out ideas that these people can vote on. In a typical organization, those ideas never come to the surface. They are lost in the mid-management or bureaucracy and stuff like that. So here, even if you have, let's say, 0.1%, you could go and propose an idea which the entire DAO votes on.
Supposing if the majority, wants to go for something that is not right, that is not ethical, how does then the minority within the DAO, do they have any ways of changing that?
So that's where these algorithms kind of come in, right? So different voting algorithms are around there. So if you kind of look at, so there is this something called heuristic consensus, and then there are n more kind of consensus algorithms and quorums, and they try to minimize the effect of this whole majority and also try to minimize the hacks that are possible if a hacker takes on the majority and stuff like that. But this is an area of research, I would say. But for the most part, if I were to just make a simple statement, yes, the majority kind of wins in today's way most of the DAOs get implemented. And that is definitely the case, that if you have majority vote in a DAO, you would have your say. But yes, as I say, there are algorithms in the works, and also there are some experimental things that are happening in DAO where it is much more distributed in a certain sense. And if, let's say, a lot of people don't come in for vote, then they kind of try to predict what the vote would be. There is betting kind of thing involved as to whether if a particular cause or would be voted yes or no. So you could pre-vote it and then you could post-vote it, some things like that. So these kind of heuristics are placed, and then to minimize the effect of the fact that yes, one person can control everything or stuff like that.
Okay. Tell us whether something about the different types of DAOs. Is there anything in particular that you think is noteworthy?
Well, so if you kind of look at it, DAOs are coming up in nature. There are various ways in which DAOs can be kind of sliced and diced. But if I were to dice them in a simplistic way, so there are DeFi protocols and there are DAOs built around that. So if you look at some of the common ones like Aave is one which is very popular, which is a borrowing and lending kind of protocol, which is a DAO. And similarly is Uniswap, which is an exchange. Then there is a MakerDAO in this particular area. So these are all DAOs which are around DeFi services that are provided, mostly borrowing, lending, or exchanges, market makers, and stuff like that.
Okay.
So that would be one. Then there are investment DAOs, right? So these are like group of people who kind of join together and they want to invest in a particular idea. So they're like VCs, or
Right.
they want to buy a particular thing, like an aircraft or an art piece or a big NFT and stuff like that, right? So those are the investment kind of DAOs. Here, I think a noteworthy thing would be something called Meta Cartel DAO, which is kind of popular in this particular area. Then, if I were to think about it, then there are grantors, right? So like NGOs. So
Right.
grant DAOs are obviously there. So you could come together and then you could raise capital for a particular cause. Open source projects are one of those, and like Gitcoin is there for the open source projects, and then there is Moloch DAO and others for creating DAOs for good causes or even bad causes for that matter. Then there is collector DAOs. Collector DAOs are basically good example would be Pleasure DAO. So this is like collecting rare items as part of DAO as collectibles, and then the DAO kind of owns that as a community. Which they cannot own like alone, but they would probably own.
Be able to afford it.
Yeah,
as a community.
So they do that. Then there is an interesting DAOs that are coming up, which are like social DAOs, right? Which is social networks now are, since they are centralized, a lot of ads targeted to users and stuff. So trying to circumvent those kind of things where they are more about the community than about making money from the community or in any way or form. So they're not yet very popular, more experimental in nature. Like there is Friends with Benefits, there is Blockster, but none of them has really made a mark yet.
Okay. How do you see this ecosystem of DAOs evolving? Right now it's pretty nascent. There seems to be this kind of frenzy around it. Last year was all about NFTs, and this year everything is about DAOs.
Yeah, so this is the new kid in town, which is probably the most popular one. But DAOs have been around, right? I mean, the first DAO, I mean, Ethereum kind of, when it started, was a DAO and still kind of works like that in many ways or forms. And the DAOs initially got a bad name because the DAO kind of started in 2016 and then it got hacked with big numbers. So the idea has been around for a while. So it's not really a new idea that is that's kind of come up, but they have really matured in a certain sense, because there are certain DAOs now becoming popular. The algorithms are becoming more sophisticated. The voting algorithms and stuff are becoming more sophisticated. So it's feasible to be able to create a DAO. Also, there are a lot of platforms that have come up where you can just go and create a DAO. So there are platforms like Argon, then there is DAO Stack, DAO House and stuff. So they give you basic tools. So you can go and create a DAO. You have the tools to do the voting. You have the tools to create the funds. You have the tool to create your tokens and distribute them. You have SDKs where you can actually code stuff for the smart contracts that are needed for the DAO and maybe make changes and stuff like that. They give you templates. So all these things have been built up over the years. So that's one of the reasons I think DAOs are kind of picking up, in the sense that now people, earlier to create a DAO itself was a big deal, right?
Right.
You needed a lot of things that needed to be, but now with the advent of these platforms, which are becoming bigger and bigger, you just need to focus on your cause or your organization. And with few clicks of button, you should be able to create a DAO for yourself to achieve it. And I think that's one of the major reasons why these things are becoming popular. And also now, since there have been some success stories like Aave, Uniswap and stuff like that, there have been these success stories which are now almost multi-billion dollar DAOs. So people are trying to believe, yes, this is not just a hackable thing which just gets hacked and that whole image is kind of dissolved. And now the real utility of DAOs is kind of coming out. And I think the future looks very, very positive for these things, because as I said in the beginning, from the definition of DAO, everything is going to be eternal software. And if you can eat the org, a lot of complications just go away. And you could have people who have never even seen each other, who don't even know each other, working for the same org in critical positions, doing critical things for that org without trusting each other, because the trust is built into the system. So you don't really need to know the person. It's all for the cause. Usually orgs are formed, like I have a reference for this guy, or I know this is my friend, so let me take him as a CFO or CEO or CTO.
But then Prashant, DAOs also formed when you pay money and buy tokens, and suddenly become the big.
Yeah, so those are permissionless DAOs, right? I mean, so that they have their own applications, definitely. But then there are permission DAOs also, right, which the community can vote on. So if you are coming in, you need to have that gate pass. So and the community can vote for that.
Right. I want to draw your attention to some of the problems, with DAOs. And as I was reading, one of the things I read is that when Constitution DAO raised about 50 odd million, for example, the users paid over $1 million in fees to Ethereum. So that's one. And of course, you hinted to the one, you spoke of, the first DAO, which was launched in 2016 on the Ethereum blockchain, raised 150 million USD worth of Ether then. And through a token sale, it was half due to vulnerabilities in code.
Right.
Again, this January, Badger DAO, which was a 24,000 member community that let people earn interest on Bitcoin, lost 120 million in a cyber attack.
Right.
There are problems,
problems, definitely. If there were no problems, DAO would be universal by now. So there are problems, definitely. So let me highlight why, first of all, these problems exist and how they are going to be solved. Let's talk about in the second phase. So the problems exist mainly because of two things, right? First, it is code, right? Everything is in the smart contract. Everything is visible. And this problem, by the way, is not just for DAOs, it is for anything on blockchain, right? Wherever smart contract exists. So you need to get the smart contracts audited. You need to have ways. So security audit is becoming one of the major plays in kind of not just DAOs, but the entire blockchain space, where whenever you are publishing smart contracts, you need to get the security audits done. And this is becoming more and more prevalent. And this was not the case, early on. And so a lot of code gets pushed, smart contracts get pushed, which have a lot of vulnerabilities. So, and the code is open there. So you could you could use these vulnerabilities to kind of figure out ways that you can do hacks. And that was one of the issues that has been there. So the first, I think, wall or the first phase would be to build these security audits. The second is the voting algorithms. Which is the key part of DAO. So because everything about DAO is the fact that how do you take a decision? And if a rogue person can take a decision, then the decision could be malfunction, right? So for, let's say a DAO controls all, so most of these hacks have been through the voting problems, right? So if you have 100 million lying around in the fund, and if I can trick the voting system to say that yes, a decision has been taken to move this 100 million to XYZ account, you are done. The DAO is now finished because you have broken the key, which is the voting system. So there have to be ways to kind of prevent that, and that has matured a lot over the years, and it's getting better and better. And as that thing gets harder to crack, it would not be easy to kind of trick the voting system. So these two things have been the weak points for DAOs from the beginning. And most of the vulnerabilities have been used in these two using these two soft points. And as things mature, as things get better, as we know about more and more, as we get more organized and better people get into this technology and a lot of stuff gets built, I think this will be something that will be very, very hard to do. And it would be much, much tougher than kind of breaking a centralized system where all the servers lie, and then, I mean, if single point of failure is there, and you could just get into somehow into the data center, and then you are done with that entire thing. So this would be much harder to crack because it would be decentralized. So once these algorithms are fixed, once these algorithms become stronger, once there are security audits in place, and there are tools already being built for all this stuff. So I think that's my point of view for what you just said.
But legal, a lot of DAOs have very limited legal standing, right? I mean, there are hardly any geographies that allow for the legal incorporation of a DAO. So even that is a problem.
Yes. So, but that's changing, right? So in 2021, so Tykhe, by the way, is set up in Wyoming.
Right.
And 2021, Wyoming also acknowledged DAOs as a legal LLC. So that's a big step because it's in the US, right? And with US kind of stamping that DAOs are legal LLC entities, I think that's a step in the right direction and also a big leap forward. And I think there are many places that are following suit. So yes, it is the beginning of things. It is the beginning of the right things, I would say. Definitely, we are nowhere close to the fact that you can go and make all organizations into DAO, bring up TCS or bring up Wipro and create DAOs out of. We are nowhere close to that. We are not there. But the new organizations that are coming up, which want to have a lot more democratized structure, which want to have simplification, where the teams are distributed in nature, where you are kind of working with a lot of unknown people, I think DAOs are likely to make sense. And there are jurisdictions that are supporting that now.
You know, but the point is that while you have jurisdictions that are supporting it, regulations will definitely place some kind of outer limits.
Yes.
On the issues of, permissionless, autonomous implementation,
Yes.
fact that they're censorship resistant.
Yes. No, that's a good point that you just said. See, so regulations are not just hindering DAOs, they're going to hinder crypto, blockchain, startups as such. And it's not that they're hindering, I would say. Regulations always follow suit, right, from technology. I mean, go back to, this could be a silly example, but go back to the invention of the wheel, right? The horse drivers kind of burned the carts that were going with them. So the idea is whenever there is a technology evolution that happens, there are always people or there are always regulations that kind of try to follow because their thinking is right. Their thinking is that the technology shouldn't go out of limits and create chaos because it's a powerful weapon that you are kind of creating in a way or form because a number of things can be enabled through blockchain and through DAOs if it's let loose. So definitely regulations have to be there. But do today's regulations map to what regulations a DAO or a blockchain or crypto commands? I don't think they're anywhere close. So a lot of thinking has to be put into that and quickly it has to be put. And these regulations should, I think, transform themselves. They should evolve with the technology. And I think things would be better in a year or so.
I want to go back to a previous point. This is on the governance community. How does a project distinguish that this is a healthy core governance community versus something that is unhealthy and where power is centralized or concentrated in the hands of a few? And what happens if this small group of factors become bad actors? How do they determine all of that?
So basically what you are saying is a person goes rogue or a set of people go rogue in the DAO. Is that what you mean? Or
Yes.
Okay. So yes, definitely that is an issue with DAO in the sense that if you have a simplistic algo of majority and let's say 50% of the votes all have bad intentions, then the DAO has bad intentions. But that is also true for any org, right? If the org, I mean, mafia is run like that. I mean, if you kind of think about it, a mafia is run like that. The mafia has a bad intention, and that's what is going to happen. So if a majority of the people have bad intention to run an org, bad things are going to come out. So I don't think that's a problem that is inherent in DAOs, but it's the very nature of the problem that we are trying to solve. But definitely there could be the ways in which this is better because everything is getting logged on the ledger, right? So that's important here. Every activity of DAO is open. All things are algorithmic. Everything is a smart contract. So you could, from an outside point, try to figure out whether this DAO is trying to do the right things or the wrong things. So from a government point of view or from a governance point of view or from a country trying to see whether DAOs that are established in its jurisdiction, whether they are doing the right thing or the wrong thing, is much easier if DAOs are implemented rather than organizations which have a lot of things hidden, right? So like, for example, most of the decisions or most of the paperwork, tax, auditing, all these things happen. Why does auditing happen? For companies to figure out what is in their P&L, where they are spending the money, whether any rogue money is coming in, whether any rogue money is going out, and so much time and effort gets spent on all that. Think about the DAOs on the other hand. You don't have to spend all that effort. Everything is out there in the open in the ledger. All you do is run a few algorithms and you get to know what this DAO is all about, right? So it's only more open organizations that are going to come out of DAO and much easier to govern from a jurisdiction point of view.
There's something, that came up when I was reading in a recent interview, Vitalik Buterin. He criticized the dominance of coin voting, which is the voting process for DAOs, which he says is just a new version of plutocracy, where wealthy venture capitalists can make decisions in self-interest with little resistance. And I think his exact quote was, "It's become a de facto standard, which is a dystopia. I've been seeing it unfold over the last few years." What are your thoughts, Prashant?
No, that's an interesting point of view, and it depends on what kind of use case the DAO is put at, right? So if you say a DAO is a government or a DAO for a country, let's say, I don't know if this whole concept works, because then you're right, because a lot of rich people will buy into the tokens and they would then govern the country in a certain way or form, and most of the decisions would be made. But if the DAO is a venture capital firm, then yes, it makes sense for people to have more, who have more share in the DAO, to have more say in what companies they invest in. That is the right way to operate it. That's how venture firms operate. So it depends on the use case. If you take the voting algorithm as common between these two and simplistic in the sense that both have the same voting algorithm, then yes, this viewpoint is absolutely correct. But the idea is that if you are going to form a government using a DAO, then you cannot have the same voting algorithm that you have for the venture firm.
Right.
And that is where the innovation is needed. And what is that voting algorithm? I don't know. I mean, for governing a country, we are not there yet. But to predict that it is dystopia and this is going towards that, I think is not the right way to look at the technology. The technology can offer you both things, right? It's a sword, right? I mean, you use it for the right thing or the wrong thing. So if implemented in the right way, I think DAOs are a very powerful way of implementing any kind of organization and even governments ultimately. But how that will happen, we are yet to see. Yeah.
Here's another thought. When you talk about participation and you say, everyone has an equal ability to participate and has a say in a particular DAO, right? But we see it in everyday life. We have a turnout problem. If there is an election, we are apathetic. How does it work with DAOs? I mean, how do you motivate people to be able to and tell them that, hey, you do have a say? What if after a point they just kind of tune out?
There are various tricks, tips, and ways to do that. So the one that works very easily is, of course, financial kind of gains. So for every voting or every thing that you bring in, it counts as a part of governance token that you get, right? So you gain tokens or you become more important in the community by getting more involved in the community.
Okay.
So things like that, right? So let's say I don't vote and my governance tokens would burn away. I'm just giving a simple example.
Right.
This doesn't happen, but I'm giving it. But if I do vote, I do get something. And slowly, as I get more and more involved, as I get more and more say in the DAO, I do more and more work, and that's how I rise up in the community.
So the behavior is incentivized.
Yes. So basically, you incentivize work of people for the DAO.
Okay.
And you could incentivize in multiple ways. One of them is finance, one of them is power, one of them governance, whatever. I mean, so but that is enabled in the DAO, definitely.
Okay. Prashant, my last question to you: do you see big organizations, say for example, the one that you worked with in the past, Meta, which is Facebook, or Google, adopting this decentralized model?
Wow. Well, I would say we are very far away from that yet. In today's, DAOs at the best they have had some success, definitely, but they are still experimental in nature. It's getting better and better, but the other problem that we have to solve is scale. Google has hundreds and thousands of employees, 100,000 of employees. Similarly, Facebook has many employees. No DAO today is working at that scale, by the way. And for an organization to work without having the hierarchy being totally democratized at that scale is yet to be proven. And the kind of complications that can come in, both in terms of the software problems and the algorithmic problems at that scale is something that we will evolve into, definitely. But today, if I were to think, yes, Facebook or Google could use a hybrid model, and that we could see in the near future, where a particular department or a particular new project could be made a DAO, and that could be under Facebook for sure, but is run as a DAO within Facebook. And those kind of hybrid models, I think, are possible, definitely. And we might see something very
all right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Prashant, my takeaway from this conversation has been that there is a promise to DAOs, right? Like they're possibly more transparent, perhaps more democratic in decision making, maybe collaborative, possibly nimble, than traditional organizations, but they're yet new, unproven, and also let's not forget that they're sometimes plagued by scams.
Yes.
So, and right now, I think to take your words, there's simply a work in progress. So,
yes, I would agree to that.
All right. Okay. Prashant Malik, general partner and founder at Tykhe Block Ventures. Thank you so very much for your time and for your thoughts today.
Thank you so much. This was a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Crypto products and NFTs are unregulated and can be highly risky. There may be no regulatory recourse for any loss from such transactions.